Dude, you know what I was thinking about lately? I thought about this for a while. A lot of... I didn't get that. Why didn't he just use his W? What the fuck? You know, a lot of people that aren't religious, myself included, would say, you know, when you're asked why don't you believe in a God, besides the fact that it's not proven that God exists, right? A lot of them will come up with this logic that if God existed, it would either mean that he isn't almighty, or it isn't a good willing God, right? Because how else do you explain all the bad things happening in the world, like, you know, innocent people suffering, etc., children having disease and all that? Like, a good God wouldn't want that, or a God that doesn't have all the power, as you would imagine, right? But I thought about this from a different perspective. Can you blame everything bad in the world on one entity or on one thing? Like, can you say, let's take as an example, let's say, like, you know, from Game of Thrones, when she frees all the slaves, right? She's bringing freedom to all the people, right? To all the people in captivity or whatever, something like that. She brings freedom in some form to the people. And like, when you say freedom, right, it doesn't only mean that you're free to move, you're free to do whatever you want, but that also includes the bad things. So now, if some of these people that were freed, right, start taking advantage of that and do something bad with it, who do you blame? Do you blame the person that brought freedom to all these people, who then some of them eventually end up taking advantage of that freedom? Do you blame the person that brought freedom to those? Because it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't that these people wouldn't get that freedom thanks to this person freeing them. So like, when you imagine, like, from a religious perspective, like, oh, God created universe and an earth and all the people, blah blah blah, okay, and then you say, hey, everyone should be free to do whatever they want, but then you end up having bad people, you end up having evil people, corrupt people that start doing bad things, right? So do you blame, in that aspect, who do you blame? Do you blame God because he allowed this to happen in a way, he, you know, in the form of freedom? Dude, when I thought of that from that perspective, I don't even know what prompted me to think of it that way. But when I thought of it this way, I was like kind of mind blown, because you kind of see this pattern with a lot of people in the world. They're gonna blame someone that brought a certain kind of freedom to others, who then some ended up taking advantage of it. Let's say like the refugees, you know, like you have countries like Germany, etc., Sweden, being like, hey, we have to be a country of compassion, we have to help these people in need out, right? But then what happens is you happen to have some of these people that also seek a refuge, but then they either take it for granted, they're not grateful for it, or whatever, they start doing something bad, and that makes a big news, and then you have like a bunch of people saying, oh, look at what they did, and this is all the fault of the government because they allowed this to happen. But it's like, can you really blame them? Because they're trying to bring freedom to everyone, that everyone live in certain freedom. Can you blame them for that when some people take advantage of that? It's a complex question. Like, not only if you were in that situation to choose whether you would give that freedom to others, would you do it? But also, like, if you had to blame someone, who do you blame? I mean, obviously you blame, first of all, gotta blame the person that took advantage of that. But is that it? Because it's pretty easy to blame the person that gave that freedom to others. Because again, it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for that. But sure, it's like easy target to blame. But can they, like, if it was you in that moment being blamed for that, could you take the blame? Would you say, oh, that was my fault? Was it even a fault? Can you even call that a mistake? Like what? If God did exist and God also saw it this way and say, yeah, freedom to everyone, and then you have all these people doing bad things just because they're able to do, like, just because you're able to do something doesn't mean you have to do it, you know what I mean? So do you really blame that person or that entity or whatever? Like, does God say, oh, my mistake, I fucked up, shouldn't have given humans and everyone on earth all the freedom they wanted? You know what I mean? Like, what is the solution to that? How do you deal with that? So you don't give freedom to all of them. Does that make it any better? I mean, look at Trump. Trump's solution is, with all the immigrants, what does he do? He separates them from separates the children from their families and let them grow up in cages. That's, I mean, out of all, that's probably the worst option. But he's like, if you see it from that perspective, he's doing the opposite, right? Instead of saying, oh yeah, they have all the freedom, he's saying no freedom for you. But is that really the way? Is there even a right way to that? Like, what is the right way? What is the solution to that? I mean, you do, in that moment, you do what you believe is right. Can you blame someone for trying to do the right thing? Because, like, no matter how you see it, no matter how you put it, there's gonna be casualties, there's gonna be issues, there's gonna be fault somewhere, and there's gonna be blame put on somebody, no matter how you do it. So, like, that whole notion of, oh, if God existed, he must either not be a good one or not almighty, because if he was, he wouldn't allow all this bad thing on earth happen. Like, I was so sure of that notion for so long, but then when I had this new perspective about it, I was like, does that really make sense though? Can you really put the blame on that? Tough question, man. Right doesn't mean good. That's one way to put it. But, like, what even is good? What even is right? Again, is freedom for everyone right or good when that causes bad things to happen? The opposite of freedom then is captivity. So if we have everyone captive and limited in their freedom, and you have less bad things happening, is that the solution? Again, like, you see what I'm doing, right? You see what I'm doing. I'm going from one extreme to the other, right? It's like, of course, we're not in most of these countries, like in Europe, US, you don't live with no laws. There is laws, and these are, laws in a way, reduce you in your freedom, but the idea of it is to prevent bad things from happening. Let's say murder is obviously a crime against the law. That's prohibited in the law for obvious reasons. Killing is bad. You don't want to kill anybody, right? So too much freedom in that sense isn't good. Gotta find a balance in that. Like, whatever topic I think about, I come to the conclusion that there has to be a healthy balance with everything. That's the interesting part. Be it like, okay, so too much freedom is not good, too much limitation or captivity is not good. You gotta meet in the golden middle somewhere, the middle ground. And that's with everything, dude. Political views, religious views, whatever whatever topic it is, there has to be a golden balance, in the golden middle balance somewhere, in between two extremes. I mean, look at the political aspect of it. You have far right extremists, and you have far left extremists, and they're both batshit crazy. And then you have the centrists, who are somewhat the rather normal ones. But then you have, like, the far rights and the far lefts be like, oh, you can't be in the middle, you have to be either on our side or on our side. Shut the fuck up. I see myself as a centrist, by the way. More like a left-leaning centrist. But, like, people, that's the problem, dude. People always see everything in the world in black and white. That's not how life works. It's not how it works. There has to be a balance with everything in life. Like, especially when it comes to politics and religion as well, but especially politics, when it comes to that, it shouldn't be about my party, your party, my team, your team. That is so bad. That is especially about politics. This shouldn't, but that's where you find it the most, sadly. Because some people are like, oh, this side is really bad, so I'm gonna go as far away from that as possible because that's gonna be good, right? No, dude. It's just as bad. If you're being told, you know, you have to live a balanced diet, you know, you have to eat a balanced diet, you have to eat a healthy diet. What does that mean? I mean, it's in the word, balanced. You know, when you're told this nutrient, this vitamin is really good for you, does that mean, oh, just take endless amount of this vitamin? No, that's gonna be deadly, just as much as if you don't take it at all. So you gotta take it, but just enough, whatever your body needs, whatever it needs, the right amount. But here's the biggest question. Knowledge is important, right? Can you have too much knowledge? Wait,